morning, everybody.
We are
Sunday.
5 minutes late.
It's 8:05. This is the latest we've ever been. Well, this is the latest that both of us have ever been. I feel like I personally have unfortunately been a little bit later than this once or twice. But
I blame excuse me. I blame StreamYard.
That's correct.
Because
Let's blame the technology.
If you don't start early enough, they don't let you start it on time. They punish you.
They're holding us accountable, Mike. Is what they're doing.
They're punitive. It's a punitive company.
I'm not into that personally, but
punish.
Yeah, right. Isn't that the world we live in?
Punished by StreamYard. I was like
nice
a minute off.
Yeah. So what? Can you spot me a minute?
And StreamYard.
They've been good to us so far, so I don't want to talk too bad about them.
Yeah, they've been pretty good to us.
Well, Mike, happy Sunday. It's good to see you. You know I love that hat. Purple,
Thanks,
the color of royalty, they say. So
yes.
I'm just saying,
Purple is the color. It is the color of choice for kings.
For and kings queens. Everywhere. Kings and queens everywhere.
It is. Good morning, Maria.
Good morning, Maria. So I would say, Mike, dare I say, that this was one of the best weeks in content history this week past. We had, of course, a fantastic show on Sunday morning. Then we kicked off the reading series on Tuesday night. If anybody tuned in, thank you for that. We officially read the first chapter of Alan Watts' The Book, which, of course, is a book that we have discussed at length here. So good to really kind of dig through it. That will be continuing on Tuesday evenings. Chapter 2 on Tuesday night. This coming Tuesday night if you want to tune in. Wednesday, I had my first solo episode. I was a little scared without you, Mike. Gotta be honest, as we talked about going solos a little different.
I know, it feels different. I was scared when I did it too. I definitely was.
But if there's anything that made it okay, I had my dear old friend Harrison Crown on, who some content faithful may recognize from the Quarantine Confessions episode that we did over the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Harrison had some very interesting things to add to our content gumbo.
Yeah, that was a great show. I thoroughly enjoyed that.
It was. And you mentioned to me during the week that I did a decent intro, and thank you for that. But it is interesting, Mike, to think that I continue to laugh about a dear friend of the show, Joanna Greenfield's comment to us that she watched a couple of episodes and she was like, I didn't know there was like a religious aspect to your show, which I think is a good thing, of course.
Yeah, she was like, what did she say?
She's like, I thought it was kind of like, like self-help, kind of like motivational philosophy kind of stuff.
When you think about it, that's the closest thing I could pick. If I had to nail us to something, I would say philosophers or something like that. Not that we are. We're just, like you always say, we just play them on TV.
That's correct. That is correct. But it is, and then so when Joanna mentioned that in our group discussion that we had, which we should do one in the next couple of weeks too. Those are very fun, that Facebook room. We had begun to talk about the fact that, and I had mentioned to Harrison that, going back in modern human history, even if you wanted to learn how to read, you did it through the church. If you needed, if you were to receive any modicum of what would be formally considered education of any sort about any topic, it was through the church that you did that, like the clergy or the intellectuals. And then, amazingly, like ancient Greece, I guess there were some kind of schools that started to pop up, but I think it happened very slowly and it was not available to very many people at all. So it is interesting to think that the church not only used to be the spiritual component of a community, but also would provide all of the services that we would now recognize as education at all different levels, teaching languages, teaching literacy, being philosophers, being psychologists, being psychiatrists, and helping with all sorts of things. So
doing it all.
now, we have very segmented fields of study, and we have a certain more depth of knowledge in each kind of individual one. Although maybe we've lost some principles of wisdom, and of course we've talked about that a lot too. But yeah, I did mention that to Harrison because to some extent, like, well, I don't know. I think therapist techniques can be woven into to the content gumbo, like I said. And one of the questions I asked Harrison was like, I wonder what your answer to this, Mike, would be, is like, why do because Harrison said, and I would tend to agree, he's like, I would really recommend therapy to anybody. And I think that's advisable. Of course, we are combating the American healthcare system in doing that. Not everybody can afford that. Not everybody's healthcare insurance plan covers the local, well, you can go to this therapist, but you can't go to this other one, and this is on your plan and all that crap.
It's not easy to find someone. It unfortunately. Really even with a good plan.
Yeah, seriously. Right. Mm-hmm. So, let's set aside that bureaucracy for the minute and just say that, in a vacuum, therapy is recommended. And I asked Harrison why he thought that was the case. And he said, because pretty much everybody has trauma of some sort. And he used the distinction like big T trauma versus little t trauma. Big T being like an event, a horrible thing that occurs to you. Happens to you or happens around you that like that's a linchpin moment where you're like, oh my goodness, that was bad. And then little t trauma is just the little kind of things that we all kind of collect throughout the course of our lives. And a lot of times it's these distinctions and differentiations that we have that Watts would mention that we allow to get into our core. We think, oh, nobody else is really bad like this. I'm specifically awful. And that accrues over time. So I think that is a good answer to the question that I posed. I think the follow-up question that I maybe should have asked was, well, then why does everybody have trauma, and is that normal? Because I could think you could make a good argument for both answers to that question, for a yes and no. But let me pull back a second, Mike, and I guess just ask you, why do you think everybody needs therapy today? Why do you think America is in a quote unquote mental health crisis?
I guess awareness. I think the old way was to grin and bear it, not have a pity party. It's an old, we've changed. I think we used to be more like tough it out, and also we didn't even have as much as like you said, we're sort of talking about it in a vacuum as if everyone could do it. Right. But not everyone, well, no one really had access to it. It wasn't necessarily understood, and it had a huge, let's say my parents' generation, it had a gigantic stigma attached to it. Just like, you watch a movie now, and I'm watching a movie, and we're watching a series, me and Erica, and it's only 1949, which is not that far back. And it shows a woman actually like going, hold on a second. I gotta turn this
off. Getting a call right now?
Yeah, it's my brother.
He's calling you at 8 a.m.?
Yeah, that's my brother. So, but it's my fault I left it on. So basically, what the hell was I talking about before?
You're watching movie 1949, ladies going to therapy.
She's actually, this is just to show how much things have changed. That's not that far back. She's going into a class in a school, in a college, and she's the only woman. She's studying to be a surgeon, to be a doctor. She's the only woman, and the guy, who's teaching, basically ignores her. And then one black person walks in, and it's the first time for both in that school. And that just shows you like how different things are now, kind of like what remember in the show, you were saying how, there was a great quote from the show you did with Harrison, when he said, if you look at a picture of yourself 10 years ago, to now, you're going to see a lot of change. And sometimes we feel like there hasn't been any change. We get frustrated. We feel like, why is things taking so long? You know, it's like the same thing all the time. But really, watching that film and that moment really was a good, example of that.
Yeah.
You know, 1949, that's not a long time ago.
Relative to like human existence, yeah, that is a drop of sand.
There's people alive right now that were alive in 1949.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
my grandma is one of them.
That's what I'm saying. So it's if there's people alive right now that were, think about that, how much things have changed.
Yeah.
And it was even like, sort of like a wake up call to watch that and be like, wow, that's something. You know, that was she for a woman to do that. So it was a white woman, and she got no type of support for it.
Of course.
And then one black man in the class, of 60 people, and no one was happy about it. And I'm imagining that's how it would be, because that's how change happens,
Right. You gotta ruffle some feathers first.
Yeah, I know I digressed a little, but I know you guys talked about that too.
Yeah, true.
And it emphasizes why now we do therapy more. To me, is because, the same way that was unusual, the situation I described. I think back then, if you would have said to someone, I'm going to therapy, or I'm going, like, oh, this guy's off his rocker.
You had to be completely nuts.
So now it's like a little bit different. It's more accepted. It's still not as accepted as we might want it to be. And I think that's why more people, in my opinion, go. I don't think it's that we are just now all of a sudden having trauma or
great point,
or anything like that, or things are worse or anything like that. I think it's just that now it's like it's more accepted, and we're trying to work things out. And it's an interesting experiment, because one of the things, when you think so much as me and you are cursed to do, Derek, which is why we're here, it can be a pretty dangerous ground.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it can go either way. You think enough about things, and it can put you in a dark place.
Yes.
It can also boost you up too if you point that ability in the right direction. And sometimes circumstances point you in a bad direction with that. So I mean, that's my little answer to why people do it more. I don't know, maybe it's just more accepted now.
I think that is certainly the case. And I guess I just would have a sort of follow-up question to that, which is, I wonder, because our society now in America is so individualized. Again, everybody gets their answers from the television and the internet, so there's no need to really go ask your neighbor what they think about the situation, because listen, I got it already. Everybody's got it all figured out, And I mean, it is alarming to notice how we're drifting more and more into this 1984 kind of world where, everybody is so individualized, and a lot of the communal organizations have been either systematically destroyed or just kind of given up over time. Even something silly like, well, people don't take buses, everybody has their own car, that kind of a thing. So there are tons of reasons for that, but I kind of think when we define ourselves culturally by our differences, I am this and this and this, so consequently I'm inferring I'm not this or this or this. And when you couple that with being so individualized now, I think that the bad feelings we have about ourselves just get compounded within ourselves over time. And particularly when we live in a society that's so like ego driven, that's so much about, listen, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You got to rise and grind every day. Yeah, guess what? Stuff sucks sometimes, but you got to, That's still a predominant attitude in America, that we still kind of do take these difficult feelings and stuff them down and say they're invalid. And yet at night, when we can't go to sleep, these things are cropping up because they're, a natural part of existence to some extent. And they certainly become worse when you try and push them away. That we just don't have somebody to be radically honest with, to say, we don't really have somebody who we can be that vulnerable with. Not even necessarily, like, again, in a vacuum, it's not even being that vulnerable, just talking about how you feel. And yet that's very shunned. That's very like, no, especially, male bravado, like, well, you don't want to show weakness. And you're absolutely correct that it's not that people are experiencing more trauma now than they were when they were cavemen, you know what I mean? Or even in the 1500s or the 1980s.
Yeah, let's give credit to the cavemen here. I mean, they're the original fight or flight guys and gals.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And you know what? Even it doesn't,
what's traumatic?
You can't leave them
Getting
out.
chased by a jaguar. So traumatic. I mean, I would be in therapy for years after that.
They wired that up for us. That fight or flight.
They did.
And we're stuck with that.
We are. But to me, it's an interesting question, I guess, to phrase it in a bit of a silly way. Did cavemen have therapy? And ugh, I invent rock today. It made me sad. And I think, again, it's a cheeky question, but I would assume that the answer is they didn't necessarily have, I guess maybe you have like a shaman type person. It's difficult to say, all the civilizations are so different, but it might have just been that they had close-knit communal groups, a close-knit community where it was okay to talk about feeling vulnerable or talk about feeling. And that's, I guess, my question is, do you think that a therapist is, at least in some ways, just like a really, really good friend, so that you don't have to feel like I need to impress this person, or at the very least, I can't show any of my weaknesses to this person. I have to demonstrate how successful I'm being. I mean, how many people do you talk to in regular life? And what you ask them how they are, and they start listing their achievements and the things that they're working on. Some of that is natural and just like, I'm excited about this thing. But isn't there sometimes at least a layer, if not the predominant feeling, that I want to tell you about all the good stuff that I'm doing?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot there. I would say.
Here's just the question is a therapist just a really good friend?
It's interesting because I would say it's weird because I would probably have to disagree with the statement, because a friend to me is different. A friend is like a therapist is waiting for you to discover something, and a friend sort of can be a real genuine part of the process as you're on a journey discovering things. They might even bump into some stuff with you, where I think that a therapist, at least in my experience, how mine's works, she never, rarely, once in a blue, and she mostly does it with questions. I think she's very good, and she says very little, but when she says things, it's like very thought out, and you could tell she's waited, for a while to say it. And it really hits something. And I think that at least what she does is she wants me to discover it, to see it. And I think that that's more what a therapist is. Someone who's sort of like, if you had a perfect relationship with yourself, you would be your own therapist all the time, because you would speak that honestly to yourself. You would think about it, and then you would those little moments would come out and say, well, maybe it's this, Michael. And we can do that for ourselves, really. But it takes practice. And I think that through therapy, I've learned how to do that more for myself. And to, but you have to have a love of self to be able to do that too. Because if you don't love yourself, you're not really going to have those honest conversations with yourself. Like, you know, if you really hate yourself or anything like that, that's not going to work out.
Right.
So that's another reason why therapy is so useful, because that person, if they're a good therapist, in my opinion, is also trying to help you into a place where you don't hate yourself. You love yourself, and you can move into a more healthy place, you know. And you know, and I don't know how many years it's been, but I was in a very dark place when I started therapy. It's been probably at least 5-6 years. I don't know, at least that much. And you know, after that time, you learn a lot. And so I don't know. I don't know if it's a friend, because they don't tell. She doesn't tell me a damn thing about herself.
It's a real one-way street.
It's a real one-way street, and that's the point of it.
Yeah. Right.
And ethically, they are not even supposed to, unless you're doing like family therapy, they're not even supposed to have as a client anyone in your inner circle.
Right.
Because that could skew, because it has to be your perspective that you're working on, and your perspective is not going to be invalid at all to the work that you have to do. You know. But the other thing too is, you know, you can get really twisted up in these things, you know, and it's like a balance. You can't, you know, you have to do it with patience and like a very kind of being kind to yourself type of way. Because you know, it's a thin line, you know, it's a thin line with that. So I think definitely not a friend, but but a friend at the same time. Not a friend that traditional, but maybe the best friend you could ever have.
Well, that's the thing, yeah.
But certainly not a friend as I think of a friend.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good point too. And yeah, certainly the common conception of a friend, and even I do this. I have done this for friends. Friends have done this for me, where you know, talk about something that's difficult, and they either try and console you or even like suggest, well, have you thought about this? Well, maybe you could just blah, blah, blah. And like you said, you're kind of like on this emotional ride together, which is a lovely experience, of course, and certainly better than being alone. But yeah, that's maybe not what a therapist is. A therapist is, as Alan Watts says, a therapist is a mirror to allow you to see yourself in a way you don't normally get to. Whereas a friend kind of has a vested interest in like, hey man, you're great. Come on. Yeah. Therapists is saying that too, but I guess in a different way.
Or you know, it can go either way with a friend, and it's sort of this back and forth journey, you know, with a friend. You know, more of like it's not like a friend. You is like you both go, like I would say the therapist is like a gas station. You know, but you and your friend are in the car driving on this journey together.
You're taking the road trip together.
You pull over, and the therapist tunes up the car, put some gas in there.
Yes.
And so that's a pretty good friend if you think about it.
Absolutely, that's huge.
You know,
because
without that, you can't go. Yeah, they clean things up a bit, but then you go with your friend, and you continue on the journey. And it's a different type of relationship. It's weird because it's not a relationship. It really isn't. It's a very odd thing.
Yeah.
But it's super useful. You know, I think it is, you know, but it can get crazy, you know, when you think too much, and you know, sometimes that's why I've taken breaks. I do it for a little, and then I'll just tell her, you know, I'll say, hey, you know, I'm going to take a break for a while. She's like, all right, well, give me a call when you want to start up again.
Right.
And I've taken, you know, 4-month breaks, 5-month breaks.
Really?
Sometimes just for a month, 2 months, you know, And I think the last break I took was quite long, maybe 8 months or something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
So, you know, that you got to work on yourself mostly. My point of view, you got to do the work. You know, Harrison mentioned that too, and
I was gonna say Harrison did say that.
I thoroughly agree. I mean, you know, one time in my sessions, I was like, I think I said, I was just always blown away by how just talking about stuff, you know, because I was not as much as I chatter now.
Mm-hmm.
I was not a talker at all. At all. I could barely express my feelings. Like I could barely understand what was going on with me.
Yeah.
At a time in my life. Like if you could ask me what's wrong, and I would try to even think of what was wrong, and I couldn't even tell you what was wrong, and I couldn't even know where to begin. So I would just be like, I have nothing to say.
I think most people are like that, by the way.
Yeah, and
you're upset, but you can't really explain what's going on.
It takes work though to be able to express that.
Definitely.
And I would say, you know, I would like make discoveries in therapy, and she would, you know, one of the things she would always say to me was, well, you've done the hard work. You really worked hard. And then because I would be amazed, like, you know, to change your self-talk. I've said this probably, you know, 5 or 6 times before, but to change your self-talk from you're a piece of you know, you always mess up. You always like the worst, like my self-talk, I've never even spoken to another person in that way. I don't think. Maybe in the heat of an argument with my wife, I probably have come pretty damn close. But I mean, we've been married like 21 years, so. And but still, even then, nothing close to how I would talk to myself.
Yeah.
And to change that to like a completely different talk, I didn't think was even possible. Because I mean, you do that for so long, it's like you start to think, am I even going to be able to change that? That's just how could I do that? Is that even possible?
Right.
And that's the kind of thinking I had. And then you do, and then it gives you more faith in what you're doing because you're like, damn. And then let me tell you, that if quality of life changed, that's more than moving into a luxury apartment building. It's going to talking to yourself kindly is going to change your life way more than moving into a high-rise luxury apartment somewhere. You know? Hey, look, we got a great comment here.
Oh, I
Joe
do Cash
Ice.
App.
He does Cash App.
Who needs bills?
I need bills paid.
Send me a message.
I definitely do.
Oh my God.
Guys, everyone send Joe Ice a message. You know, Joe Ice, he's got it. He's got it covered. And he didn't pay us for that.
That's true. That's a free
we just could tell, you know, how honest and what a good guy he is. Joe Ice.
AOC Joe Ice, though.
AOC Joe Ice. Okay.
I don't know what's going on.
I don't know what that's about. But thanks, Joe. It's always good to have you on the show.
Come back anytime.
Come back anytime, man.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting what you said, Mike. And like, you know, but I guess my next question then would be, because I think it could be pretty easily said that we live in, if not a world, let's say a country, where we are tremendously lacking in self-love. And of course, as we mentioned many times on the show, if we do not have compassion and love for ourselves first and foremost, then we cannot make the world a better place, and we cannot bring love and compassion into the world. You can't be angry at stuff. You say, I want to make it better. You can't bring that vibe. The universe will only read that as anger and will spread it around. So I think the question is like, well, why do people not love themselves?
I think I got an answer for that.
From
my own experience.
Yes.
I think it's because they value themselves based on external sources of opinions and on and on and on. So you don't love yourself, for example, because the closest person to you, you know, may, I don't know, make you feel like crap. Whether that be a parent or a friend or a significant other, or even a bad boss or an abusive church leader or something, whatever it is. And if you see your like, let's say that's the person you value the most, whoever it is, like in your life. And if you see your value based on how they see you through their eyes and how they express it to you, and you can even take that to the media. We talk about this all the time. The imaging and if you don't have this new this and without this toothpaste, you're gonna suck. And on and on. So if that's where you're getting it from, or if you're getting it from social media, from likes, it's not sustainable. It's not reliable. It's just the worst place you can do it from. Yes. And I think that's where most people get it, because we're just like bombarded, always trying to prove ourselves, always trying to. And the truth is, it's funny, to love yourself, you always want to climb a damn mountain. I'm climbing mountains now. And the truth is, man, the truth is, and I'm not there, I mean, I'm not there. And, but because if I was, Derek, I don't even know if I'd be climbing the mountains I'm climbing. Would I be writing this book about my cult experience? Would I be, I want to make an album with it, an audio book. Would I be doing all that stuff? I mean, really, would I be climbing? Like, if I was completely content, like just to have a moment of pure honesty here.
Right.
Would I be really climbing? No, I'd be like, I'm on Zen mode. Yeah. I don't care. Listen, if anyone can stop doing stuff, I've got a couple awards, and I can probably sit on that and just be like,
you're good, man.
Been there, done that, and I'm Zen mode now. I could be like Russell Simmons, like
yeah,
and
set, dude.
But here I am, and even him, he's doing a podcast. He wrote he's Mr. Zen guy now, who was like this hip hop mogul who was, capitalist supreme,
of course.
And now he's up in who knows where, and he's Zen mode, but he's still doing podcasts. He just wrote a book on what you should eat. This guy's still climbing mountains, and it's like, if you legit are content, you would stop climbing these unnecessary mountains, because you would know. Like, I know this in my mind and my intellect, but I don't have it in my heart yet.
Yeah, and that's where it counts.
Yeah, and that's where it counts. And that's, that's just being honest. And that, I've learned that too. You gotta be honest with, if you practice being honest with yourself, then you can start to be more honest, like here, with whoever's watching, and that's a practice, and it all starts within. It all starts with ourselves. It's all the answers are here inside of us. I don't care what anyone says. That's my dogma.
Yep.
There's my soapbox.
Yep.
I'll defend that to the end. That's my God.
I would agree.
And my God lives within me. My God is there. It's not in a book. It's not in a mantra. It's not in a methodology. If I have to have a dogma or the gospel according to Michael, there it is. He lives in me.
Yes.
He, universe, whatever you want to call this entity, this being, this source, this immeasurable, incomprehensible, that I touch a tiny piece, and like we were talking the other day. Where was it? I don't know. I think I was talking to some. I think it was was it when Julie was on the show. I had this one moment, or it was post show or whatever, but I had this one moment which was kind of zenny.
Yeah.
I couldn't even handle that. How much did I complain about that for like a week, Derek?
You were really upset about it.
I was very upset because I hit this peak sitting on the ground, in the forest,
meditating,
being Zen guy. And, I hit this peak and it was freaking awesome. It was like, I was like, the world is perfect. Everything's, like I hit that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to my little Nissan, got inside, had to go do some shopping, food shopping or something, and had this problem and that problem. And it made me more mad about that.
To balance it out.
I was better off before the Zen moment. So, it's like that, suffering is grace.
Yes.
What can we do? We're here. We're going, how did I feel this morning, Derek, before we got on the air?
Yeah, hey, we were dragging ass a little bit, but that's okay.
Man. I'll tell you, I was.
I was.
What can you do? That's life.
Yeah,
here we are. Some days are bright and shiny. Some days it rains, and sometimes there's a hurricane.
Yes, certainly.
And that's some Zen for you because we're looking at nature.
That's right. Well said across the board there, Mike. And I think that both things are true. It's interesting that because at some point here we're coming up against our notion that, of course, we need to have the devil. That sometimes it's moments where you are discontent that drive you, power you, motivate you to get to a place of more contentedness, more equanimity, evenness. Food wouldn't taste so good if we weren't really hungry sometimes.
Fact, yeah.
So part of that is like, hey, that's just life, man. That's just what it is. And even actually, there are certain stories of like ancient Buddhist teachers who did become enlightened, and it's not necessarily that they were like living in ecstasy in every moment. It's that they were content in every moment. So they would get frustrated, but they have no attachment to that frustration. So it happens to them because it's life. That's what happens. But it doesn't ruin their day. It doesn't even ruin an extra second of it. What's up, Ivan?
Yo.
And good morning, Isa. So, yeah, this is a little positive and negativity that...
Look what Navi says.
Navi says, I don't care how bad nature gets. I'm still going to raw dog the air.
Bringing back a classic moment.
Dude, honestly, I've been taking walks the past couple weekends with my girlfriend, and like, it's insane. I'll just like take down my mask a little bit and do like a couple deep breaths, and it's like this is so silly to say, like it smells so good. It's like so good, and I don't even really like the cold weather particularly, but like just the cold, crisp January air to take like a full breath in through the nose.
Beautiful. It's beautiful.
I like to think I'll never take it for granted again.
And that proves what you said. You can't be full unless you're first empty. Unless you're sick, then you don't need a remedy.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know what? You would not be breathing and enjoying it so much unless you've been wearing a damn mask for about a year.
I hate to say that, but that is true.
And yesterday, because I appreciate that air so much, as cold as it was.
Yes.
I went for a walk. And in my neighborhood is not very populated, so I bring a mask, but I don't wear it.
Yeah.
And I go take a nice walk. And I go to and yesterday, let me tell you, not a soul in sight. I went to the track over here by the high school.
Yeah.
By myself. All by my lonesome. And it really, really it felt great, man.
Yeah, I agree.
It really did. But it's because I've been deprived of it.
Yeah, precisely.
Once you're deprived of something, you appreciate it more, man.
Yeah. Which, you know what? This is a bit of a different track, but I would like to mention this, Mike. I'd like to ask you this too. Something I'm looking forward to, and I don't know how exactly this whole quarantine period is going to come to a close. It's a vaccination that makes people feel good. I don't know. Apparently, New York City restaurants are going to open back up starting for Valentines Day, I guess. King Cuomo there said that you can have a a wedding with up to 150 people starting March 15th or something like that. It appears that no material circumstances actually changed. I don't know why we feel okay about doing these things now.
Yeah.
So much as like, we're just really sick of it. And I don't know, the vaccine. So here we go. Okay. But when things come back, let's say over the summertime or what have you, and then maybe not totally back, but at least, you can start seeing some people again. Because of course, like a lot of corporate business interests have benefited tremendously from this. I heard that Amazon in like the first quarter, I don't know, I'm not a business guy, but Amazon at one point during this quarantine, during a fiscal quarter, tripled their sales, which is like,
they ran out of their money now.
Think about how much money Amazon must have made normally.
I'm guilty of helping them triple it.
As am I.
I'm big time guilty.
But they tripled it? I mean, how do you
The only time I'm in the store now is if I return something from Amazon. It's easier. I go for my little mask and get online and return it at a store because it's so easy compared to packing it and everything. They pack it for you. And I'd like to throw this up here because this is actually a really good point. Well, Peter says presence is power, and I'd like to throw this up there: sensory adaptation, because Ivan posted something about this, and it's something for the great pause we're on. And we've touched on this before, but I think this is really interesting because basically sensory adaptation, from what I understand, a good story of it is the Febreze story. They made Febreze. They came up with this technology that actually does kill the scent in the room.
Okay.
It does. It's legit. And it's, wow, you guys did it. But what happened was people were so used to that stinky, dog butt smell in their house. They didn't smell it anymore. Sensory adaptation. That's what Ivan's talking about. And then Febreze said, oh, okay, that's what it is. We did do a great product, but no one knows because they're so used to that smelly butt smell. And so they made a lavender scent or this and that. So it's killing the scent and giving you something to make you feel like, oh, it's done a great job.
This is noticeably different now.
While you may not smell the dog butt, anyone who comes to your house will, because they have not developed that sensory adaptation yet.
Oh my God.
And so I wonder how much sensory adaptation we're doing right now and during this pandemic, because I think there are going to be so many, whether it's intended or unintended, I can't speak to, but consequences. Like what? I mean, I've gotten so used to so many things, so much sensory adaptation is taking place with me personally, that I don't know what's going to take place when it comes back. Am I going to want to run back into the same behavior and lifestyle? What I don't have an answer. I'm just throwing it out there. That's a question I have, and I don't think the answer will come until time passes. And you also have, apparently, who I consider my map, for better or worse, Mr. Gates.
Right.
He's just more gloom and doom.
Really?
He's just reaffirming what he said before about more pandemics, worse. I don't know why he's doing that. I don't know what the math.
Come on, Bill.
I know he's a really smart guy, but I also know there's a lot of psychological aspects to this.
Yes.
And conditioning, and I'm not like pointing at any specific person or anything because that's pointless.
Yeah, right.
No pun intended. But there is, intended or not, psychologically, his things ain't going to be the same post this ever. Our kids aren't growing up the same that they would have if this didn't happen. They're not. Then our kids aren't going to be the same people they would have been if this didn't happen. I'll go that far.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
I've dealt with stuff personally that I probably wouldn't have even touched for 10 years.
Me too.
So I don't this is a game changer.
Yes.
Complete. And I think
that's
what Ivan said.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because and naturally we had to adapt. I mean, that's what humans do. That's what all species do. But yeah, that is my question is, well, look, let's say that this quarantine period is, I want to compare it, although obviously it's not an apt comparison necessarily, but I want to compare it to 9/11, which is like however that terrible event occurred, whatever the series of decisions or things that came into place where that came to happen. It happened. That's true of the pandemic as well. And then there were things that happened as a result of that. And in both instances, you had the powers that be in the country and the world seize upon that as an opportunity to have more control, kind of take away some individual freedoms, and again, push this material thing. So, after 9/11, then we have the Patriot Act. We have all these, so they're recording all your phone calls and listening to all your emails and all this stuff. And with this, of course, you had the CARES Act, which was a tremendous mobility of wealth upward. And also, you have everybody moves to a work from home situation. Everybody's ordering off Amazon way more. Everybody's doing delivery food and stuff like that. So
I'm never going back into a store.
Well, that's the thing. That is altering your life in an enormous way. Well,
now what?
Right. And a lot of people felt that way.
I didn't like going there before.
Right. So there is a momentum, again, being pushed to by the powers that be to have everybody stay indoors more, be further atomized, be further individualized, and be further removed from any sense of community that is real in the sense that you meet with people in a room. It's much different. You and I know us doing this damn show. It's different to be standing in a room of people, to feel the aura of other beings. And you have to be more compassionate. How easy is it to be on the internet to talk to somebody who lives halfway across the country? Neither of you are using your real names. You don't know who the hell you are. There's absolutely no responsibility for anything that you say. So you can just talk shit all you want to. And you can just be the most awful person. And you could just spew negativity in the world. And there's zero consequences for that. So there will be a push. There's already a push to have everybody stay indoors more and be further and further alienated. Which, again, when we live in a society of individuals who are afraid, then we're very easily controlled, which is very dangerous. Now, that's the negative, aspect to this. What could happen, what I hope will happen to a bigger degree, and honestly, I don't have a whole lot of hope of this happening, but it will happen at least to a certain extent, and some of it is in our own control. I would encourage anyone to do this. As I certainly will, is that because everything is trending towards more being on the internet, more staying at home, not seeing people in real life, not being connected to people in real life, when we had this abrupt break where we couldn't see anybody anymore, like it was one day, somebody pulled a rug out from underneath us, and it was, you want to go out to you're going to hang out with your buddies on Friday? You can't, or you'll all die. So given that the instead of it being this gradual reduction of in-person actual community-based events, we had somebody pull the rug out real fast, which feels uncomfortable, as opposed to, like Harrison was saying, well, you just get one win at a time, or one loss, as it were. So when you look at yourself in the mirror every day, you don't look different. But when you look at yourself in a picture from 10 years ago, you're like, oh my gosh, it's so different. So we had a very stultifying event where all of these things were taken from us. And I would like to believe that once this stuff kind of concludes, the sort of pendulum will swing back, And we will not only like enjoy being in person again, but we will put a specific emphasis on making sure we do those things and saying, you know what, I am going to go to the movies. I am going to go to Broadway. I am going to throw a party. I am going to have that thing that I normally wouldn't have. But you know what? We've been cooped up for 2 years. Let's do it. And I would like to believe that that is a more predominant cultural push than the staying inside kind of thing.
I'm completely clueless on this one.
Yeah.
I'm having a real opinion about it.
Yeah, it's difficult to say which one will be. I'm just saying,
I believe as you,
yeah,
as you do.
Yeah, if I had to put my money on it, I would put on everybody staying inside.
But you know what? I think that, you know, if you're in school right now, let's put it this way, and you're trying to pick your major and you're in the social sciences, jump on social. So, you know, the social sciences, because that's gonna blow wide open.
Yeah,
guaranteed. There's no way it can't. Why? Because this is unprecedented, and the thing about it is it's sustained. So you have different, because of my cult trauma, I've learned a bit about trauma and different types because I wanted to understand what happened. And sustained. This is sustained. And it messes with you on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
So like you said, 9/11. Now 9/11 was not, it was an act that was horrible.
But it was
but it didn't keep on. So 9/11 was like something crazy, unbelievable, unimaginable that shocked you and just threw you off like in every way possible, and it just shook you. This is something that's slow, sustained, and it's affecting you in ways that you don't even understand and may never understand fully.
Yeah.
And I'm going to guess, because this is usually the case, some people are going to come out of this better. It's just the way things are. People go to war, literal war, and they come back like with trauma and everything, and then they go through this process and they're actually sort of stronger and more put together, in a sense, still having the trauma, and then other people just fall to pieces.
Yeah, and it's made worse by the fact that we have no social safety net to help those people.
And that's
I fear that there's more in the latter category than there are in the former. It takes a tremendous level of being to be able to reckon with all this stuff.
So that being said, this is a sustained psychological. I mean, I'm not going to go and, please don't misunderstand me, anyone. I'm not saying this is like a psyop, like a psychological war on people.
Right.
I'm just saying, it is heavily psychologically affecting everyone.
Yeah.
And on different levels, to different extents. So, this is something Isabel's saying. The government is giving grants to health centers, hospitals, and organizations to go out to community as a response to COVID, gather info resulting from COVID disparities, and identify cooing. That was supposed to be another word, right? Cooing? Something.
Mm-hmm.
One org is NY Project Hope. Yeah, so but that's more what I'm saying. They know that they're trying to understand. Yeah, thank you, Isabel. They're trying to understand what's already happening, how to deal with it. And, unfortunately, there's a lot of bad actors out there. That's just life.
Yeah.
And most people are going to take that information and use it to get what they want, whatever that may be.
Right.
It's not necessarily that, we want to help people and we're going to get this information. They're probably getting this information to say, all right, how's this really affected people? Okay, we can't market to them that way anymore. You know,
exactly.
Who's funding that project? You know, okay, well, it's not going to work like that anymore because now everyone's woke. And
Right.
all right, so we let's get a little more, this way, and let's.
Isn't it disgusting? Isn't it disgusting to see the commercials that are like, it'll be, like a family hugging one another, and it'll be like, we're coming back together. We went through a lot, but we're better than ever. And the commercial is by Chase Bank. Like, guys, you don't have anything to do with this. The commercial is by Michelin tires. You're like, could you not exploit the pandemic to sell me tires?
Well, that's because it's about high time I have my friend Jason Burnham on here.
Yes, repeat guest.
Jason Heller.
Yeah.
Because he is an expert at that, and
Really?
he understands that very well, and he's the president of one of if not the foremost companies using AI to understand behavior and
that's right,
and market to people.
Yes.
So he's a good guy to me because I love him.
But other people might not think that.
I'm just saying he's doing some tricky work, and I think a nice candid conversation with him, if he's willing to, would be pretty cool.
I would agree
because he's one of the smartest people I've ever known, and he understands the ins and outs of what I'm talking about probably better than anyone I know, because that's his business, and he's great at it, one of the best in his field. And but it's going to be used. They're getting that info, they're gathering it, and they know that you as a human, check that out. Let's just think about this. They know you, Derek, as a human being, ain't the same guy you were when they marketed to you a year ago.
Right.
And they want to know who you are because they care. Derek, you matter.
Right.
Now, why do you matter, Derek?
Because I make money.
Because you make money.
I don't make much, but I have some, and they want it.
You make enough to matter to these people. Okay, you make enough because you're in the marketplace.
Sure.
You're buying toothpaste.
Oh yeah.
You matter. So don't you ever think you don't matter, Derek. Okay, as long as you're buying toothpaste, you matter to somebody.
That's correct.
And they're going to spend millions of dollars because you matter. Okay, they're not spending that money because they don't care about you.
No.
Right? Darn it. So yeah, man.
Yeah, so it's going to be really interesting to see what the world is post-pandemic, and not that I have any real prescription. I'm just going to say for myself, I'm going to try and remember the feeling very deeply of the isolation of quarantine, and then how nice it was to talk to people on the phone who I hadn't talked to in months, if not years. To reach out to people who I had not spoken to in the longest time, and how good that made me feel, and how better that would even be if we were to get together in person. So if you have friends live around the country, plan the road trip, go for it. Let's not forget, and this is something, I feel like we mention this once every 25 episodes, or once every 15, 20 episodes. Something good can come from this.
Always.
And again, with regard to big business and things like that, they're going to keep humming the way that they always are. But individually, we do have an ability to create positivity as a result of the isolation that we've all been forced to endure. And I am, as a matter of fact, looking forward to getting a chance to do that.
And that's a positive spin, but I can't help it. I just want to throw this out there too, because I have a 13-year-old son, and who I love more than anything in this world. And it breaks my heart, to be honest, and say, I know that this has affected his brain. He's in the growing stage. His neurons are connecting. And I know that this, being home this much, he was already in 13-year-old, 12-year-old struggles, which are completely normal.
And let's be honest, being 13 is tough, man.
It's
rough.
Crazy.
In some ways, it's even tougher than high school.
It's really crazy blind moment in life.
Yeah, you're really overwhelmed with a lot of stuff.
Of you're invincible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like you're everything you think you are, you're the opposite. But you completely believe you're that. You know,
Right.
you know this, you know that, you're invincible. Don't worry about it. You know, now you throw this like process that's happening in a human being, and then you lock them into this situation. You take away the schooling. You put a new thing on it. You take away the hanging out. You take away for a year. Maybe it's gonna be 2. You know, Gates, the map. He's just saying things done change forever, man. That's what Gates is saying. And you know how he's my map, man. You know, I said that to someone, and they said they responded on Facebook. You always get a nice blunt comment from someone, which I
sure.
appreciate.
Again, the internet's so easy to talk shit. Yeah.
Thank you, Cynthia, for the blunt comment.
What'd she say?
He is the Antichrist. and you know what, man? If
she
things
could be right.
If things go badly, he's definitely going to be the Antichrist. Because when people look back, he was just like the map. He was just like, okay, in 18 months, and watch out for this, you know, and blah blah blah, you know, and it just keeps happening according to Gates, you know.
Right.
It's
for
like,
better for worse, he does.
Yeah.
He's been right so far.
I've got the gospel according to Mike, but you have world history, world future history according to Gates. Now that's a whole nother level. I can't even play in that. I don't have the money, and I don't have the friends, and I don't have the brain power as he does to read a book in a day, drink a bunch of Diet Cokes, and set up networks throughout the world bigger than, more powerful than governments. I just can't do that.
I'm working on it. Trust me, I'm working on it. But
I'm working on it.
I'm not close.
I'm already 2 cups of coffee in. I still, you know, I'm nowhere near that. I don't know if I ever want to be, because
seems like a lot of pressure.
It's hard to believe that you could be that smart, that powerful, that successful, and actually have the objectivity and humility to say, maybe I'm going too far. It's just, listen, I know guys who just get a couple $100K in their pocket, you know, and they completely change.
Yeah, right.
They just a couple $100K. You know, they got a whole new group of friends.
Different man now.
They're different. They don't care about nothing. Now, imagine if you had what this guy has. Listen, I don't know. You know, how does that? Can you even fathom that? I mean, this is beyond being a superstar. What Gates has is beyond being a superstar. It's beyond being, you know, the greatest actor and winning 10 Academy Awards. That's all cute to him.
Yeah, right. It's child's play.
Oh, look, he's got 10. How cute. Let's have him over. I'd like to talk to him. You know, that gets you maybe cute and have some tea. Not dinner. You know, it's just cute. It's just cute. Look how, and you've always liked acting.
That's nice. Hour maybe. Yeah. Oh,
that's so nice. Well, cute. What do you do? You know, blah, blah, blah. Oh, it's nice. All right, I gotta go. Yeah, really nice talking to you. Blah blah blah. It's like, really? Are you? This is the level this guy's at. So
yeah,
you know, when someone says he's the Antichrist, I kind of get it. You know, but
I could see it.
But I'm not committed to like him being out there doing things to intentionally hurt people. I think he's really just a really smart person who has so much power and money and has done so much on his own that he's more powerful than most countries. And he just thinks he has it figured out better than probably 99.9% of us.
Yeah, right.
And he really thinks can make things better.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's under the impression that they're usually right about everything, and I'm sure with all the wealth that he
That's
has
what I'm
accrued,
saying.
with all the wealth that he has accrued, he certainly
I know unemployed people who think they know everything, who've never even graduated high school.
And to be honest, they probably have more common sense than that guy.
So what about this guy, Gates? I mean, what is he? He knows he knows that he knows.
Sure.
And he knows that he knows more than pretty much almost anybody. And he knows the inside track. He's got everybody on speed dial. Imagine that.
Must be nice. Must be
everyone.
Nice. I gotta say,
presidents.
Yeah.
The billionaires of the world. I mean, if he wanted to, I believe that this morning at 10 a.m., he could just drop a call and say, you know what? At noon today, I have something important to talk about. And he could have the heads of state that he wants there, the presidents of every major corporation.
Yeah.
And I think he could do that by 12 o'clock today.
Which is admittedly impressive. So
if that ain't, listen, I get the comment,
Right.
I'm just not, I'm not there because that's that eschatological end of times or, kind of thinking,
Right.
And kind of shy away from that now that I'm post that stuff. Great show as usual.
Good stuff, Mike. Mike, who we got on the show this Wednesday? Tell the people who.
Oh my God, I forgot.
Yes.
We have David, and I'm not going to say his last name because I'm going to mess it up. I think I'm sorry, David. It's been a like a really hard morning. But we have David on, and he's a former pastor, and he's brilliant, and he writes, and he's in and out of all the nooks and crannies of theology, and I've read some of his stuff, and it's brilliant, and it's kind of going along with our theme of deconstruction, post-Christianity, people who are on a new path, Christian paths. Some leave. I believe he's left. And it's an interesting place because everyone's departing, and it's not like everyone's going to the same place.
Right.
And that's what I think is fascinating about me having these people deconstructing Christianity on. Some will be like me, where I'm still in the Christian group. I just feel like there's time for a new type of Christianity. Some are just completely out, like we had Julie on, and she says sort of like I do, but the things she's talking about, any good fundamentalist would disagree with.
Sure.
So it's an interesting, mix of things. So please tune in Wednesday. It's sure to be great. I'm a horrible person with names. I could beat myself up about it, but I'm not, because I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, what's the point?
David, I'm so happy that you're going to be on the show, and I really am excited. I did read even somewhere that you had. I'm probably going to ask about this Bart Ehrman, which is an amazing, world-renowned theologian in an academic sense, and I think he's worked with him at some point. So, I mean, we're having some pretty fucking cool people on this show.
I must agree, man. I gotta say, the Wednesday show is a lot of
fun.
We
really are. I mean, we've had Buck Wild, one of the best producers of hip hop of all time. Mm-hmm. We had Julie up here, which is an author, someone who's leading the charge of a new kind of Christianity, in a sense. Mm-hmm. We had an awesome mental health psychologist, right? He's a psychologist.
I think Harrison's a therapist. Yes.
Therapist, okay.
I'm sure
we've had, and that conversation I thoroughly enjoyed, Derek. Like, you did I forgot to mention, you did an amazing job.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, we didn't mention enough about Julie in this episode too, and we should get into some of the things she talked about next week too.
Yeah, and it's all up. It's up on. All this stuff is up. It's available. You can watch it. We're definitely having some interesting conversations, and this was kind of a nice one because it was a throwback to our earlier vibe where we really didn't know what. Yeah, this is on Wednesday, 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
Every Wednesday, pretty much. We're gonna have an interview, and so yeah, man,
this felt like an old quarantine.
This was like an old quarantine, so it was nice throwback.
We had to check in with, we haven't mentioned quarantine in a bit, and it's still going on.
By the way, here we are. And by the way, if you guys haven't heard enough of my big yap, Jose from Courage to Continue podcast is not feeling well, and Ivan invited me over there, and I'm crazy enough that I said yes. So if you want to follow me over there for any reason, that's going to be Ivan's in the comments, and if you click on his Facebook page, if you click on it, it's going to send you right there, and he's already live, so he's just hanging out waiting for me. Just like he's dead air right now. He's dead air. He's trying to hang in there, and I'm gonna let him hang in there a little bit more because I gotta go get some more coffee and everything. So I'm gonna give him another 5 minutes at least after this. But thanks guys for tuning in, and see you Wednesday.
See you Wednesday.
All right. Right on cue.